Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Centrus Energy. It is time for another update, and in the previous video I have shared with you this expectation to extend still to lower prices, primarily within this wave 4 in white, where yes, in the case of this chart we would still be looking to follow up in continuation to higher prices instead of continuing this decline within a white wave 5, possibly into the $500 to $800 area. Well, on the larger time frame, we actually have a few options. This could still turn into something significantly more bullish, in my opinion. We have been focusing on the smaller time frame, but just as a rough idea, if this turns out to be another 1-2 setup, well, this structure could extend far beyond what any of us would really imagine of this next leg to the upside, which already is substantial. We would be looking at 4-5x, maybe even more than that. But if this is to turn into a wave 3, well, we would be looking to reach $3,000, the 138.2% extension of a wave 1. We don't need to focus too much on that, but I just wanted to highlight that just because on this chart the focus isn't a wave 3, it doesn't mean that something more bullish couldn't be going on. In fact, if I were to look at the larger time frame, the structure would actually work out better for this to turn into the actual wave 3 to the upside. Now, with that said, we go into the smaller time frame where until we actually see the reversal, until we actually succeed in forming a bottom, it doesn't really matter what wave we would get next to the upside, right? Because we might not get any. So in the smaller time frame, I have been focusing on this as a potential wave 4. I have provided to you the area of support down to $151, and we were looking for continuation to higher prices as long as we did not get a sustained break below it. So far, nothing has really changed, and even though we have seen a brief break below this area of support, we did actually close a daily candle. This is really nothing. We have been going on and on within this correction for 237 days, right? This is about what? Like 8 months. And for this to become a sustained break, I would likely have to see a stronger break firstly. And then I would like to actually see some trending around these levels below the 50% retracement, maybe to get even rejected as we attempt to push back above this area of support. Since none of this has really happened, and yesterday we have actually even gotten a bullish engulfing green candle on the daily time frame, I believe we are still in the green here. I believe this structure would remain intact at this point, and especially as long as we hold the current lows, we would be looking at extremely favorable risk-reward ratios, even in the case of wave 5, because what would we really be risking in the case of this setup? We could be looking to maybe allow a break back below the area of support at $151. Maybe we want to allow a retracement down to $149, and that's where we have our stop. Well, we would be looking at a 7 to 8% loss, right? Well, I actually shouldn't have lost that. In the case of a successful breakout, give or take, I might have not drawn this perfectly, we would be looking maybe at 300%, maybe a bit less than that. Let's say we get a weak wave 5, we get only 200%, barely scraping above the previous high. Maybe we actually go nuts and head towards $800, reaching 400% in gain. Looking at it from this scale actually makes us realize how we are basically risking next to nothing for the potential of a quite substantial reversal. And especially as long as this wave 4 area of support is still holding, we actually stand to have decent clarity in terms of the expectations, because it doesn't need to be something more bullish, it doesn't need to have some unrealistic expectations in terms of what we can expect in the next move up. No, we are only looking for a wave 5 to actually form a more complete structure within what we already had in place for quite some time now. So, moving on into the internal structure. In this wave 4, I have of course been looking for a 3-wave correction, and we've actually had a few attempts to form a more substantial bottom. I've been considering this to have possibly been a bottom. It failed, we formed a lower low. Then I did consider the possibility of this being the actual bottom, although we hadn't reached the support box we had here in green. And now we have another chance because I've been tracking this as an actual ending diagonal ever since we started this last move to the downside. And at this point, I believe we might have 5 waves in place within the wave C. I believe a bottom could very easily be in, also courtesy of the nice reversal we have already formed to the upside. With all of this in mind, the ideal target for the wave C would have been the 100% extension of the wave A. We haven't quite gotten there, but it's really close enough. I wouldn't consider this to be a problem by any means. I actually believe there is a good chance a bottom would be in. I actually believe from these levels, without getting a reset of this wave 4 in white, without getting a break below $145 once again, I believe we would be able to extend in this wave 5 to new highs to complete our expectation within the larger pattern. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, let me show you the levels of resistance we would actually still need to break for an even stronger indication that a bottom would actually be in. Because even though it is possible for this wave C to have a bottom in, I could track something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I do worry a bit about the scenario where this structure instead would have been the actual wave 3, where we actually need a wave 4 correction and a wave 5 to have a more clearly complete wave C. So in this scenario, I would have to watch the resistance levels up to the 50% retracement at $165. As we can well notice, we have just pushed into this last level of resistance today. We have gotten rejected at this last level of resistance. So from this perspective, we would still be well on our way to forming one additional low within this wave 5, which could be considered to be made even more likely, because if I were to consider this to be the actual wave 3, well, the ideal target wouldn't have actually been reached. We would have barely touched the 123.6% extension of the wave 1. The ideal target for the wave 3 is the 138.2% extension. So the structure down isn't quite ideal, and it would actually look better with that one additional low in this wave 5 in orange. But then I actually bring up the context where we are looking at this to be a wave C within the wave 5 of a large wave C of the wave 4 correction in white. It isn't uncommon at all to actually not get that last leg down, to actually form early bottoms within such structures, to the point where I would rather argue that if we are to stay on a zoomed out perspective, this structure has done more than enough to have a bottom in. I believe it is extremely capable of looking for the reversal within the wave 5, and especially if we manage to get a sustained break above this last level of resistance in orange at $165, we would have the best possible confirmation without actually building the initial 5-wave structure that would give us a better idea of a more substantial bottom, a better confirmation, another setup even. We will actually stop here with the expectations from the large time frame. We can have a brief look at the expectations from an even smaller time frame, where within this structure I am looking to build possibly an initial 5-wave move to the upside, where at this point my primary expectation would unfortunately have to be that this is building a leading diagonal, where we only have 3 waves to the upside at this point. So I would have to favor that from the area of support for wave 4 down to the 61.8% retracement at $155. I would like to see another high happen. I would like to see a wave 5, at which point I would have the initial 5-wave move to the upside, at which point I can even look for an internal trade setup in a wave 1 up and a wave 2 down. Unfortunately, it is not rare, especially within such small time frames, that we do not follow through exactly within those expectations, and in reality, we might be building a larger leading diagonal where I would have to even consider that this would have been an ABC pattern. We would have formed a wave 1 up here, we could get a wave 2 correction, also in an ABC pattern, and so on until we build the larger confirmation that the more substantial bottom would be in. That would be one of the possibilities. And beyond that, I do not really believe we even have reason to go, because we would get in deeper and deeper levels of technical considerations where we would never put an end to this video. So, for all intents and purposes, I actually have to allow an even deeper area of support before looking for a more confirmed failure, let's say, before having more confidence that this structure will not succeed in forming this next high. So I would actually have to allow this correction to go as low as $149, the 78.6% retracement. And even then, I actually have a bit of structural support in this area between $148 down to $147 for a reversal that would ultimately still allow this wave 4 to still be working out, for this bottom to be in, and to form the reversal to the upside. It's going to be rather difficult most of the time within these early stages of the correction to identify a reliable pattern. Most people who will want to be getting out of this stock will be getting out by the time we actually complete a more difficult structure in this area and we actually start the reversal. And for now, we will actually stop here. For me, still, the most important level at this point is actually the resistance at the 50% retracement in orange. So these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.